Welcome to the Multiracialverse. Hello, hi, hey.
Welcome to episode 3 of the Multiracialverse Podcast. I am your host, Antonio Fernandez. Today we have the incredible Bren Juarez in the spotlight, a vibrant and empowered force like no other. Bren is not just a certified life coach, but a devoted mom of 2, a podcast host, and a dedicated community coordinator at the local school district. As the daughter of a Mexican immigrant and a first-generation Latina, we aim to broaden the scope of our podcast by delving into the rich tapestry of multicultural experiences. Bren's story is a testament to the dichotomies that arise when cultural roots extend beyond the borders of the United States, intertwining with the complexities that arise when these cultures encounter the American way of life. Join us as we explore how Brenda unravels her own roots to help her tree of life grow amidst the intricate interplay of diverse cultural influences. Picture this episode as a life coaching session where we unravel Bren's own transformative journey, a tale of trauma-filled LA city girl who evolved into a self-aware small-town woman on a purposeful path over the past decade. Get ready to be inspired and motivated as we navigate the empowering wisdom Bren Juarez has to share with our audience, shedding light on the interconnectedness of cultures and the personal growth that arises from embracing these unique intersections in the mixed-up world of the multiracialverse. Hello, Brenda. Welcome to the Multiracialverse. How are you doing today?
Woo! The Multiracialverse. Dude, this is such an honor because I remember when this was still a concept in your head. So kudos to you because this is the full circle. Earlier this moment, I was with someone who I've been coaching for 4 months, and that person was talking about how they don't even recognize that person from 4 months ago to now. And I think, this is so cool to know that 4 months ago, this Multiracialverse podcast seemed like a thought in your head, an inconceivable idea, and now here we are as am I a guest here. So
yes. I was talking to my wife yesterday, the same exact thing. I was like, I put podcast, I think like halfway through the year on my vision board, and it was like, okay, it's on there, but I was just kind of like, I didn't know what that even meant, and all of a sudden, yeah, you're right. It's here. And I'm super excited about it. Super excited to have you as a guest. Thank you for being part of my journey, being part of the early kick in the pants too. So we're here today to talk about you as a human in relationship to the work you do, but also how your journey has shaped you in the way that you've tiptoed the line between the different universes you live in. So tell me a little bit about your background. Where are you from? Your parents? And tell me about that.
Woo! Okay, so I usually try to remember to start with I'm a strong and courageous soul because I think to do the work that I do, it's scary and it knocks you on your ass and then you got to get back up. But I'm a Mexican American, pocha, right? I grew up in LA. I'm from Watts, as you guys can see over here. If
the tower?
Video recorded. The tower from Watts, right? So yep. I'm from Watts, California, which is a neighborhood in Los Angeles. And let's see, my family's from Mexico, Zacatecas. And for those, a lot of people do know Zacatecas. It turns out we did, right? Near and dear to my heart. And currently I live in Northern California, which is Humboldt. And I want to just also mention Humboldt now as a place because the space that I'm in is allowing me to heal my ancestral stuff too, and allowing me to be a guest on these lands and really help my community grow, and helping other people grow helps me grow. So that's that of where
that's awesome. Yeah. I was thinking about that too the other day. I want to build in a land acknowledgement into the intro prior to any of the episodes I run, because it's so important to me. I know there's something about me that really feels that indigenous spirit and wants to make sure that I honor that. So I appreciate that little reminder there. So what brought your parents here to the United States?
Yeah. And yes, so if we want to acknowledge where land I'm at, I'm in the land of Wiyot territories, the unceded land of, I think that's how they say it, unceded territory. So thank you to these lands and these people, because they are amazing stewards of these lands. So what took them there? With my on my mom's side, and what's crazy is both of my parents, both of them are from Zacatecas. So sometimes you have one parent from one country and another parent from another country, right? So both of my parents have the Mexican background, and both of them are from Zacatecas. So my mom's dad came to work like in refineries or something, and he bought his first like real estate in Watts. And I think he had like a store and a house, and then at some point sold the store and just kept the house. And he did what you see in most movies, right? Like they come and they work in the US and they send money back to Mexico. They're building the home in Mexico. Like the dream is always go back to Mexico and retire there, right? He started a family. My grandparents had different views on that. My grandma wanted to be here. He wanted to be there. And so that kept the family in Watts, right? They even did that. They tried to live in Mexico for some time and it didn't work, right? But so that kept my family in Watts. And so then in Watts, my mom as a 13, 14-year-old meets my dad, who is this 12-year-old immigrant from Zacatecas, right? Like, so my dad comes, I think 11, 12, something around that, preteenish, right? And he just comes for a better life, right? Because the story is always that en el norte es mejor, right? Like people, you know, like let's talk about it how it is. Like in our culture, you know, sometimes we talk about the whole, you know, Ramos talks about life as a gringo. We're not too Mexican for over there, but we're not too American for here, right? And so you have like my dad who comes here at 12 and starts just working immediately with like older family, and then meets my mom, and they become parents by the time he's 16 or 17, you know? So that's what keeps them. So my dad comes to the US to work, a better life, right? Ends up meeting my mom. They end up becoming teenage parents, and then the cycle kind of repeats, but is better, right? I think I can fully acknowledge that while I didn't have what I think now to be the style of life I want to give my children, my parents gave me better than what they had as well, right?
Yeah.
So I want to acknowledge that too.
Yeah.
But that's how my mom and my dad meet in Watts. I pretty much end up living there. They buy a home there when I'm like 2 years old. So I grew up there my entire life until I leave to college at 18. And my experience, like I went to elementary school in Watts, and then I moved over to Southgate, which is a nearby community also in the Los Angeles County area. And then my, parents split by the time I'm like 10 or 11. My dad lives like in Compton and other surrounding areas. So I'm like very, very familiar with the Los Angeles County area.
Yeah. So are you an only child, or do you have siblings?
No, so I have one older sibling. She's 6 years older than me, and she's the reason I ended up in Humboldt. I think we're each other's reasons. We helped each other get to where we are now because, like when she was applying and like practicing for her interview, like I was there helping her when I was still like a freshman at Sac State, right? Like, so I'm like also helping my sister. She gets this job, she moves here, like this, it's like such a novela. Like I'm in this horrible like situationship. I drop out of college, I go back home, and then like I'm getting in trouble in LA. So then I like come to visit her in Humboldt, and then I end up loving Humboldt, and I just like go get my car, pack up my shit, and like restart life in Northern California as opposed to the Southern California city girl, like So that big ass pivot happened.
So let's take it all the way back though. Like when you were growing up,
when I was 8 years old, exactly 8 years old, my second grade teacher, shout out to her, made this poster, and I'm looking at one because I did one with my 8-year-old niece like a couple months ago, but it's called My Very Own Poster. And when I grow up, I want to be, mine said singer. So at 8 years old, I wanted to be a singer, which I think Jay Shetty talks about this because he has a microphone tattooed and he wanted to be like a rapper. And now he helps people with his voice, which is what singers do, right? You heal through your art, right? So I'm still here healing through my art too, with my voice too. So
that's
some
awesome.
capacity, I did that.
What is this your own poster thing about? Because part of what I want to do too is just we can share little tidbits with people that they might be able to either do with their kids or do on their own. So that sounds interesting to me. I have like young daughters, and we like that kind of stuff. So
so I'll grab my nieces and just like read off what it is, because I don't have mine on hand here. Although my mom did save it, and it was like she preserved it very well. But it's just like this. I just drew it out on a big paper, and I'll post about this later, right? It says my very own poster, all about me on the top. And on one bubble, it has my family, draw your family. On one side, it says me, and you're supposed to draw you. In the middle, it says a few of my favorite things, and you can clip things from a magazine.
The food trucks.
Right? Yeah, food trucks.
She's speaking my language.
Right. In the middle, 3 wishes, me, right? And then at the bottom, things I don't like. And then on the other side, when I grow up, I want to be, right? But and then in the middle, it also has, and I'll read these to you guys just so I don't share her information, right? It says, I am, and then like you put how tall you are. I am blank tall, and I weigh blank pounds. My hair is blank, and my favorite color is blank. I am blank years old, and my name is blank, right? And then on the other side, and this is the part like that I want to keep, like I love this part and just how vulnerable a child can be on this, right? Because when we did this, her mom was in here. Nobody was pressuring her to put whatever. She was doing her own thing. So 3 wishes, so then you put, I wish blank, and I wish blank, and I wish blank. Mine were like to have a lot of money, to have a lot of clothes, and shoes, and to have a pool in my backyard. Those were mine. I don't care sharing mine. But it was super cool, right? To now, as a 30-year-old woman who's gone through has life for, that has helped me see what my brain was like when I was 8 years old. And that's the beautiful part of that. So it was cool that you said 8 years old.
Yeah.
And then at 14, by the time I was 14, somewhere between 8 and 14, I had gotten like scabies, and I was always like in the hospital. And then I still, as a 30-year-old woman, have these horrible cramps, right? And I was one of those girls who started her period or her moon, depending on how you call it, very, very young. And it was painful. It was painful since then. And that's a whole topic for another conversation of just how my only 2 options as like a 12-year-old little girl in serious pain was really strong pain meds or birth control to help me with the pain. So I think that's an issue that as a woman, I need to address at some point in my life to try and help figure that shit out. Right.
Sure.
Because how do you expect someone to be feeling good to go to school when you're like in complete misery? But anyways, so that my very own poster for the 8, sorry, we're already talking about the 14. So between then and 14, I'm always at the hospital. And it gets to the point where there's some places that do make me feel really safe, and I see how much they're really helping me, and how when my rash starts going away and I feel better. So I get in my mind that I want to be a pediatrician. So when I was 14, if you would have asked me how life was going to go, I would have told you that I was going to attend a medical school in Puerto Rico, in San Juan, because I wanted to go to San Juan, Puerto Rico, which became, I manifested this year on my 30th birthday. It took me that long. But I was going to go study medicine there and become a pediatrician and help little girls just how I was getting help. So that was the 14-year-old dream.
Yeah. And so you manifested going to Puerto Rico this year? Awesome.
So being a listener, this is why podcasts are important. I listened to a podcast called Yo Quiero Dinero by Janice Torres. So check her out, right? Like, shout out to all our Latinos, because everyone adds a different style of brick to this podcasting world. Like, people are like, oh, everybody podcast. No, not enough people podcast. Podcast more. But I'm listening to her podcast, and then I see that she posts on Instagram that she's gonna give away, because she did her Our Money, Our Power. I don't know if it was called a summit, but I think it was Our Money, Our Power summit. Yeah, in Puerto Rico, right? Because she's from PR too, and it's gonna be talking all about finance, right? And she's gonna give away a ticket, so there's like $1,000, and give you $1,000 for flight and hotel. So mind you, I'm about to turn 30, and my whole, since I was 14, self always dreamed that I wanted to go to San Juan, Puerto Rico. I wanted to fucking see San Juan, Puerto Rico. I don't know why, right? I don't know why, but I want to go so bad. And I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna enter the contest. I saw the note 24 hours before it was the contest, right? And I enter the contest, which is like, review the podcast and like send her the screenshot. Mind you, I've never won anything online. I get home from work at 3 a.m. because I'm working at the casino late nights, right? I get home, I like put the baby to sleep or whatever, like, 'cause she wakes up, and then I set my alarm for 3 hours later so I can wake up to see if I win this contest. My alarm goes off, I open Instagram, and like, boom, cheers, like, I won this free ticket to learn about money with Latinas in Puerto Rico. And it's going to be my first solo trip. And I fly back on my 30th birthday.
Wow.
I think I get here. Like, what a fool. Fucking thank you, universe. Universe listens.
Yes.
Did it happen to me when I was 18, how I wanted it and thought it was going to happen? No, it happened to me in the moment where I was in a safe, loving home where I can grow, where I was thriving, where I had already been doing the work, because life lifed from 15 and up, right?
Yes.
So, yeah.
And I love that. I love that you talk about manifesting. It's funny, and we'll get into that a little bit more with the work that you're doing now. But you talked about the manifestation of this trip to Puerto Rico, and you're putting the pieces together. Like, you were thinking, like, I'm going to be a doctor in Puerto Rico when you were 18, and it happens here. How do you help somebody recognize that these things might not manifest right when they think they are, to recognize that maybe they've manifested already? Like, how do you help, and we'll get more into the life coaching, your clients recognize manifesting doesn't always and might not always be the same exact picture, but it might have manifested, and they don't even know it?
That's a good question too. And I think it's helping them gain awareness, because the awareness helps you be grateful for where you are and see how your current reality is a manifestation that at some point you were asking for most of the time, right? Because if most of the time we're at this space and this capacity where we're having a conversation about your growth, more than likely, like, you're in this moment where you'll understand that everything happened for you. But at the same time, and no, not but, that's not a but, that's a big, that's a and on the other end, and then for the future, that's something that I have to help them, and that I usually help through story too, right?
Yeah.
So there's no way of me proving to you that life can be better and that you can manifest things. The only way I can prove it to you is by sharing my story and how I've got to there, and supporting you and asking the questions for you to figure out that for your story, because they're not going to look the same, because we have different lived experiences, because completely different humans have raised us, and they have their own histories, and so forth and so forth. But what you find is that in all these common grounds and all these communities, at the end of the day, what most of us want is like safety and love. Like you get down to the needy, and your kids in your house, they want to feel safe and loved. You, wherever you are, want to feel safe and loved. You want somewhere that when you close your eyes to rest at night, you know, like my neighbor, I had this random conversation with my neighbor yesterday, the 80-year-old man, about how like he's like, cuando tú te vas a dormir, tu alma descansa. When you go to sleep, your soul rests, right? And I was having a trip out moment anyways with him, because I'll share real quick, because I just want to show, I want to talk about these things too, because I find them like signs. And I think I was having this conversation with one of my coworkers in the space that I do here locally, in the space that I build community here locally. But she was telling me how she sees the number 444, right? And how sometimes she forgets that we can ask our spirit guides and our ancestors or angels for support. And they do show us these things. So my neighbor, who's this 80-plus-year-old man who walks every morning and stuff, is wearing this Virgen de Guadalupe sweater, and I think it says Santa Reina abajo. But the Reina is spelled with a Y instead of with an I, which in Spanish it's usually spelled with the I, Reina. But his sweater is spelling it with a Y, which is how I spell my daughter's name. So it catches my attention. and I tell him, I was like, hey, that's spelled differently. And he was like, I don't know how to spell or like read, so I trust you. And he's like, you do so good in knowing how to spell and read. And I was like, damn, you know, because him and I connected because he saw me wearing a sweater that said Juarez, and I guess like, you know, he's from Mexico, and that conversation came up. But that was a beautiful connection from the get, right?
Yeah.
And then so here's this image literally of my first daughter's name, right? And then as he keeps talking to me, and when he tells me about sleeping, a random conversation about going to sleep and how it's when your soul rests, that's my other daughter's name, Soul, right? Like the alma, right?
Wow.
And so I'm like, the universe tells you when you're in alignment, when you stop to have the conversation with your 80-plus-year-old neighbor, just because I'm not trying to get anything out of it, but here the universe is like, this is good. You know, you're slowing down. So anyways, that was supposed to come out.
Yeah, but you do, no, it's beautiful. But you do have to, you know, open your eyes to what I consider are, you know, either little miracles. Some people call them God shots or other things. You know, you have to.
God shots?
Yes. Some people call them God shots.
That.
Yeah, so God shots, you know, or the universe is throwing things at you. When you were a teen or going into young adulthood, what did you want to do as a profession, and how did the way that your parents worked, how did that impact maybe the professions you looked at? We also want to talk a little bit about, you know, just the beauty of those things that they could pass on to you about their work ethic. But were your parents were like, hey, you can do this or you can do that? What was that experience like for you?
You know, I think that like so backing up to that, when I was 11, my parents separated. So my dad moves out, and I consider myself kind of like, and it feels like messed up to say of like, I was raised by a single mother, but in a sense, I felt like I was, right? Because he was out of the picture at this moment, at this pivot, right? And so then I got to watch a lot of her. Because of whatever reasons of my childhood trauma or whatever, like I have a hard time remembering things like before like 8, right? Like I have some of those posters. My memories come from the things that my mom has saved and pictures and stories, and not necessarily like from my own tellings, right? So and again, I just want to throw that out there because some people think they're weird, and it's like, no, I feel the same way too. I don't remember a lot of shit too. Yeah. So and our brain does that for our safety feature. Yes. Like that's like a safety feature of your brain. So don't freak out. Let it be. But the most modeling that I see, and it is a lot from my dad. My dad is a hard ass worker. He came here at 12. And he ends up working for this. He does a lot of stuff. He worked at a lot of different places, but the place that I remember him working and seeing him grow is in tow trucking. Like he's a tow truck driver, right? So he's been working there probably over 20 something years at this point. And you see how like he really enjoys this thing. He really feels a sense of help. He goes and helps people in the moment where they're like fucking broken down, right? And or he also has to pick up the wrecks of uh of cars and accidents happen, right? And how this like destroys families too. So, but at this time too, my dad is transitioning through his own recovery, right? Because he's an alcoholic, so he's in this own recovery long process too. So I think like when they heard me the singer, it was always very supportive, I feel.
Okay.
You know, and then on the other hand, my mom was a preschool teacher or a Head Start teacher, and she was trying to become, and she had all these challenges that I also got to witness. So my mom actually, in the middle of this, like before the separation, she goes back to, so my mom doesn't finish high school because she has my sister, right, as a freshman in high school. And so she, and these are like events of my story, of my mom's story, that I don't try and get too much into detail because I'm like, so this is my mom's story to tell, right? But I think this is like stuff that she knows I share to help people. But so she goes back to school to get her AA so that she can continue her education, and she has some caught ups, and point is that she really also models like when you believe in something, and that the fact that it's doable. Somehow she was able to raise the two daughters, work the 9 to 5, have all the situation going on with my father at the same time, and get this degree. So I see that education is something that does help, and I see that she's developing and she's doing this. So they taught me, and what I watched from them, all in all, for this question, I guess, is what I watched in them was hard work, and that you can do anything regardless of how you start out, because my mom was that teenage mom, and my dad, his whole story. So I'm like, you can make it. But they also, I think, wanted something where maybe it wasn't as hard, because I think they got to experience, and they were still experiencing hard, so they wanted something that was supposed to be easier. And they heard the same thing that everyone's parents heard: get your education and life will be easier, because you'll go get you this degree, and when you graduate with this degree, you're going to go into this field where you're making lots of money, and you're not going to have to work and have the same struggle that we had. All in all, to summarize, I think that that's how we can summarize the intellect, like, or the thought process of like first gen parenting and all of that, like, or immigrant parents. Like, that's the purpose of it for the most part. I'm not saying all, because people have different whatever, but that was in my experience for sure. And so I went to college, right? And I don't know if we get into that, right? But I tried it. I tried the thing, and it wasn't for me, right? It just it wasn't what I thought was going to help me grow and thrive the way that I wanted to.
And so how did that bring you to what you're doing now?
The not going allowed me to get life experience, right? Like, I started to work. I had to work, because if I was going to be living somewhere, and this is not to say that people that don't go to school work, because a lot of the girls that lived in my same dorms, like, they worked jobs and they went to school. So totally possible and doable. But I just felt like the things I was going through in life, I felt like I couldn't even focus in school if I wanted to. I needed a break. Like, life had been lifing already since my parents split up at 11. At 18, I just wanted a fucking break. Like, I had done school and summer school for the last 6 years. Like, your girl was burned out. I have a word for it now. I didn't have a word for it then, but I was burned out, right?
Yeah.
And I needed something different. I needed to experience life outside of Watts, outside of Southgate, outside of my family's shit. Like, I needed to get away, right? So I went to Sac State, and it's a school that, again, funny enough, full circle moment, right in time for this podcast and to share in this interview. I went to Sac State around the year of 2011 and 12. And I had a professor that I ended up having first semester, and I loved her so much that I did a second semester. She was a teacher. I think the first class I took with her was called Intro to Native American Studies. And then the second semester, it was Native American Studies, Native American Religion and Philosophy, or something like that. Like the way that this woman spoke and the way her energy, like it was always something that called me. I loved her class, and it's the only like professor that I feel like, you know, a connection with. I've been out. This has been over a decade ago, right? And about 5 years ago, I've always thought about her. She's always been in my head. And 5 years ago, I tried to reach out, nothing. Then another 5 years went by and I tried to reach out again, nothing. I could never get in contact with her. And then finally in the last year, I was able to get in contact with her and she sent me her number. And I've called her like 3 times since, but I had no response. And finally, like last Friday, we get on the phone. We talk to each other. And here I am telling this woman who is a tribal member from a nearby tribe of here where I live now, who I remember. And that's why she always stayed in my head, because when I was taking her classes, she would share stories of where she was from and how she grew up in her tribe. And then when I come up to Humboldt and like visit my sister, I pass by a sign that says, my professor's tribe. And I'm like, this is where she's from, you know? So she stays. And now I work in a community with mostly Indigenous and Latinx youth. So it just like fuels my heart even more that like I'm being guided in life across the decades. I still get put people in my path and my journey that inspire me to like keep doing this.
That's amazing.
Work. Yeah.
I love that. And so what did it take for you to get to become a life coach? So what does that look like?
So what that looks like is, one, deciding that you want to become a life coach, because a lot of people, and it sounds like no shit, Sherlock, but how many people think they want to do something and they just keep thinking about it and they come up with all the reasons of why it would be hard. So it's going to be hard regardless. No matter what it is you decide to do, it's going to be hard. So decide is one. And then after you decide, just do a Google, right? Look up certification schools. And don't get scared, because there's always multiple different which ways. Some of them get very pricey. The first time I looked up, this is how I got into life coaching and why I decided to really stick to it. Because the first time I was listening to JJ, again, podcast. And I'm like, this dude is teaching me everything I know about life coaching. And I'm like, how does one become a life coach? Or I look up the best life coaches in the US, and Tony Robbins comes up. And I Google, how much is it to work with Tony Robbins? And it's like $25,000 or $35,000. And I was like, well, no shit, that I'm like 20 something years old and I've never heard of life coaching, because this is obviously just something for rich people. This is not something for people like me. Like the average person cannot afford no $25K for somebody to help me figure out all the mess and help me figure out the shit, right?
Hold your thought on this part too. What did you think life coaching was when you were doing this, research?
I thought life coaching was someone that can help me figure my shit out so that I can become success in whatever that meant to me. Yeah. Like, I think that's the easiest way I could put it in a sentence. It was going to be somebody that could help me, like, just like you have basketball coaches, fitness coaches.
Yes.
I thought this was going to be somebody that could help me sit with me and figure out like why I am the way I am and why I keep repeating these cycles, because I'm seeing that my grandma had issues with her dad. I'm seeing that I'm seeing that I am with this has happened multiple times. So like, what is it? You know, like,
yeah. How if somebody said, how does this differ from therapy then? What would you say?
I would say that a therapist, one, is licensed, you know, they went through a whole lot of stuff, right, to be able to help you to that capacity. And that therapists help you really go back. They help you dig deep, and they help you in a safe way uncover all of those things that got you to this point, right? You're going to talk to a therapist probably about your deep-rooted trauma. You're going to talk to a therapist about all the things that you can't tell your husband because it's weird, that you can't tell your siblings. And I want to say that too, because let's bring one thing, a hard conversation up in this multiracial verse podcast, because I'm sure that this is something that's going to be felt across all multiracial people coming in on here, that within families, things happen, right? There's the children, things happen to children from the tios, from the tias, like, or the neighbor, like, and these are conversations that are not had because you might never truly feel safe to have that conversation with your parent, or you don't want to make them feel fucked up that this happened under their watch, or blah, 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 blah. Or you think that nobody's going to believe you anyways, or, you know, like you're just coming to terms with it. All of these other things, that's what the therapist is going to help you with. That thing that you experience that keeps you up at night or that makes you want to sleep all day, that's what you're going to talk to your therapist about, okay?
Yeah.
A life coach, on the other hand, is somebody that you're going to be like, I don't know how I fucking made it here, but I made it here, okay? And I understand that it's not going to be a fucking smooth Disneyland ride up to where I want to be. So I think I want to go in this direction. Can you help me figure out how I get to this place I want to be? That's the life coach, right? The life coach, the therapist is like, you're digging into the hard stuff. And then, and the life coach, sometimes you do end up digging into some of that hard stuff, but I think it's like the surface of it, right? That's like, it's like that iceberg mentality that we probably get surface level, but with the therapist, you could go deep into that shit. And that's why you could have therapists for years and years and years and years, because you're fucking unpacking 10, 20, 30 plus years of shit, right? So with your life coach, usually we're looking forward and we're looking at goals that you can reach in the next 30, 60, 90. And mostly I feel like I do a lot of 90-day work, 90-day increments, yearly increments. Like, this is not going to be a quick fix. It's not going to be like, you put this shit on, tomorrow you're going to be this loving, perfect wife and mom, and, you know, you solved all your community's problems.
I think your words with me were, just get that shit on the calendar. Get that shit on. Get the podcast dates on the calendar, which worked. It was important because that was the hump that I needed to jump over. You know, it's like, so I appreciate that.
So that's what the life coach is. You're
that's
welcome.
Awesome.
I received that because the more that I do that, that's all it takes. And that's why I had to decide that shit summit. You just have to decide that shit. And then, like, for somebody, and that's where the life coach, again, the life coach is not normally like your sister or your cousin or your best friend. Like, it's the person that you hired me to give you that push forward. So I'm not always going to be like, oh, it's okay. You know, sometimes I'm going to be like, okay, you said that last week. Now, when is the date that you want to make this happen? So that I can check back in with you and make sure that it happened. That's all it is, you know?
So then you searched out these certificates.
Yes.
Where did you land?
And so we get to pandemic time, right? 2020. And I'm still listening to Jay Shetty since 2017 to 2020. 3 years. Took me 3 years to decide this. And well, no, because he just came out. I see that he releases that he's starting a certification school. Thank you for getting me back on track. That's where we were going with this.
You'll probably be on Jay's podcast sometime in the future.
I think so. I think so too. Yeah, I'm seeing that too.
I say the same thing with the some of the ones that I listen to. One day I will be on their podcast.
Yes. And I used to say that about Dramos, and I've been on like 3 times now, huh?
That's awesome. Awesome.
So I see that Jay Shetty says, hey, I'm opening a certification school because I want to help you become a life coach and share the knowledge that I have. I want to change 1 billion lives. He's on this mission to make wisdom go viral, to change 1 billion lives. He's like, you want to get in on this? Get in on this. So I look at what it takes to apply at that time, and I'm sure it's changed a lot now, but I'll share numbers because this is how businesses grow, right? At that time in 2020, when I signed up for his certification school, it was $3,000. $3,000 sounds very cheap to some people and sounds very out of the line to some people. I was at the border, like very out of the line, but I've also had some lived experiences where one night of drinking cost me like $16,000. So I was like, I spent $16,000 on a pendejada. I could spend $3,000 to help me figure out how to help my community and how to be a better person, how to invest in myself. If I could spend $3,000 because of partying, I could spend
That's the key.
$3,000 investing in myself.
Yes.
So I said, fuck it. And so that's what I want to say to everybody. Decide if it seems way out of your reach, if it seems doable. I did something that I don't really recommend to do, but I also don't regret doing because it helped me get me to where I am. I put $3,000 on my credit card. That's a whole conversation for another time, but you do what you got to do because
Yes.
I knew and I felt in that moment that I had the time, the opportunity, and I was inspired and motivated at that moment to just take action. So I put it on a credit card and I started the process. I thought that I was going to finish in 16 weeks while I was on maternity leave. It turns out having a baby is really hard and you don't have all this free time to study. So I didn't finish my certification when I thought. It took me a little bit over a year. But in that process of certification, and I think that I can safely say that 90% of these programs, what they're going to teach you is how to stay consistent and give you the community and support that you need to get you to where you're trying to be. So then it is figuring out like where you're priced, because everybody teaches it a different way. You guys, all of this shit works. All of the workbooks, all of the free trainings, all of the things that you do, they do work. You just have to find the person that you vibe with and that you can stay consistent with, because that's the key, the consistency part. Yep. And I'm saying that like I got a problem with it because I think people get too caught up and they're like, but they offer, and here's this new, because I've been there too. But at the end of the day, it's just, who do you think you can stay consistent with for a while? Because this shit is not an overnight thing. Like this is a journey, right? So that's what it is for people. Go look into which place seems good. Make sure that they are, you do your research, right? Do your research when you're going to pick one. And I did with Jay Shetty. I obviously knew Jay Shetty is a large podcast. Like there's a lot of people who know who he is.
What were some of the things that were a push and pull within you moving into something like life coaching? We see a slew of individuals on Instagram that, that are life coaches or people that just throw that term around. Was there a struggle psychologically within you as you were climbing up this ladder on your journey to get to where you are today?
110%, because no matter how much I believed all the people that I was following to be true, like all the Tony Robbins, Mel Robbins, like Jenna Kutcher, like to all, like she's not a life coach, but to all capacity, like all of these people that are helping you become better, that are coaching you, I still kept falling back to like, but they don't look like me, like I don't look like them, they don't look like me. And until I stumbled across my first life coach, Esperanza Lebron, like, and saw this Latina, I was like, oh shit, it's possible, right? And then, because I think that's what maybe got me so, like, I was so good with Jay Shetty, was because finally it was someone of color. It didn't matter that it was man or woman, but it was someone of color that I knew understood the like immigrant kind of like first gen and what parents expect and blah, 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 blah. So I felt that connection there. But when I finally saw a Latina, because then I got really into Brooke Castillo, who, I don't know, she might be Latina. I'm not even pretty sure. but Esperanza, she, and one day she did this thing too when we were having a webinar or something, of just holding up her hand. And just the fact of being able to like identify with somebody, I was like, it makes such a huge difference. And so every time that I would let myself, because the only times I would get into comparison mode and have a lot of the the resistance that you're talking about with the way that coaching is, because I don't find none of the ones that I followed, I guess, because they do exist, I'm sure. But I didn't see any like racist white coaches, like there was nobody trying to tear me down in the coaching space because they were white, right? But it was just the fact that I needed someone that I knew had a similar lived experience that I could relate to and could be myself around and not feel like I have to like be more like, oh my God, or like whatever it is that I felt in my mind is how I pictured white culture or whatever, right?
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I think that's how I dealt with it. Like, I really didn't have anyone tearing me down, and I still wanted to feel like it was possible for me and seeing myself in others. And then I saw the fact that how long it took me to find someone, and how I still feel like there's a representation missing of like Latinas that don't have degrees. And that's where I kept showing up for me, because somewhere along this process, I kept seeing that the thing that made me feel like I was not good enough, and that made me feel like I was less than, and all the things, was that I didn't have the degree to back up to say that I really want to do this thing and serve my community. And here's my degree that's saying I can do this.
Yeah.
Like, I wasn't having that. And because I did hear my parents say a lot about the degree, right? We're taking it back to that, because they weren't forcing it to me. It wasn't like a, you must. It was from my mom, but at the same time, like, I wasn't like disowned for not doing it, right?
Yeah. Did you have any last comments about the representation piece?
Yeah, I think, again, just that it matters. And I guess that's where I can talk about that, of just like, don't just think representation too of like in terms of how you look or who you identifying with, but it's like in the work that you're and who you're being in that process too. Because again, like when I talked about the no school, like that, I'm that representation for the Latinas that don't have degrees but still want to help their community, still want to build community. So like, that's a factor that most people probably wouldn't think about, but that I'm like, I'm representing that for somebody, and somebody's like seeing some success in me, that now if they also don't have a degree, they can be like, well, she did it, I can do it too. Because I think that's the part of representation. That's where I was getting with. That's how like drama says, I'll tie it with a neat little bow of like, that's why representation matters. Because the moment that you see it and that you think I can then do it too, that's when representation has worked, to me, in my eyes.
How's this journey challenged your own beliefs and assumptions about personal development and self-improvement? Have you talked to your parents at all about what you do, this part of the work that you do? How's it challenged you in that way?
That one's an interesting one. That one's a good question too, and that I'm so happy to share, because other Latinas or Latinx, Latine people that want to do this too, or even people from other immigrant places, right? Because it's the same thing of like, how do you explain this to your parent? With my mom, because she was already like born and grew up here, and because we have the same language, we can communicate in English effectively. I have a good time, and like she gets it, like she understands it. She understands how it works. But we're able to communicate a lot better about it. My dad, who grew up in Mexico, but then like came here as a preteen, I have a harder time communicating what it is that I do. But at the core of it, I'm able to communicate that it's something that I love, and that's something that helps me serve my community. And that I help people provide the tools to manage their like thoughts and emotions better. And I think he understands that, because again, being like alcoholic in recovery, right? Like, and he's been sober for 6+ years. Like, kudos to him, right? Shout out to him.
Yeah, for sure.
He sees that some of the same themes that I talk about are the same themes that may be covered like in AA or another spot. So he knows this works too. And when you think about it, like even in religion, right? Because I grew up Católica, right? I still practice Catholicism, if that's how you say that. But I also practice all kinds of other things. If you invite me to a Christian church, if you invite me somewhere else, like I'm still going to honor the fact that this is something that somebody practices that helps them. It might help me sometimes too, but explaining it to my dad, it is that much. It is something difficult, but I think again, if we, regardless of what we're doing in any field and anything, I think if we can explain how this is like aligned with our being to our parents, at the end of the day, that's what they want to see, like, or that's what they hope for you, that you're happy in what you're doing and feeling fulfilled, right? And hopefully making a living, and hopefully, yes, I get all of that too, right? But But I think that's the best that you can hope for, because if you're doing stuff you love, you're usually also being a better XYZ, right? And I want to say XYZ because we all have roles. You're being a better husband, a better wife, a better mother, father, sister, all the things, right? So yeah, I have that with life coaching and parents.
That's awesome. I mean, we've covered a lot of ground. I mean, I was looking back at some of the questions I had, and I think we've kind of touched on almost all of them. I was going to throw you out some lightning questions, but I've actually decided though that I was going to only have like one lightning question, and that's what do you think we can do, humanity might be able to do to get to world peace? Is there such a thing? Do you think? And I asked the other person that I was talking to on the previous show, is it something that we could handle? Like, what would your vision be of how we could get to that place?
Damn. You had to really throw a multi.
I should have warned you. I should have.
No, that's a good one. That one really has me feeling so like Doctor Strange, right? So like, damn. Because I'm at this point where you question, like, can world peace really happen?
Mm-hmm.
Because with all good, there is bad. You know, there's this yin and yang, right? Like, so where's all the bad going if world, you know, like if everything's peaceful and good, isn't that like when it ends, right? Like when you think of like in religion, you think of this other space, right? You know, working with local indigenous tribes, like they talk about the creator and this other side too. Like that's when it's supposed to be peaceful, right? So I feel like coming to terms with the fact that life is chaotic, that life is ups and downs, is ebbs and flows, because that's living. You know, and I would want to say that like I can say like, can you practice one thing that would be world peace? I'm like, you probably can, but in the pain too, you get to experience the love. So it's kind of like, I don't know. I would like to hope that there was world peace, but then like, I don't know. Is that for the afterlife? Is that the other kind of life peace? Think about it.
It's as simple as if one morning everybody woke up and said, I'm going to be kind and I'm going to love my neighbor and I'm going to walk out of the house and carry that with me. You know, what would that look like, right? But it's interesting because you talk about just the layers and the juxtaposition of bad and good. Like they have to exist? I mean, a lot of that stuff is either, you know, stuff in mythology and history, you know what I'm saying? So I just figured like any question is the right answer for that. And I like that you brought that thought into it. Like, you know,
that was a different thought.
Might just have to exist. Yeah, for sure. So let's wrap it up with this. Where can people find you online?
Yeah, so you guys can find me. My website needs a little bit of an update refresh, but I'm getting there. So website is www.brenjlifecoaching.com, and that's Bren, BRENJ, the letter J, lifecoaching.com. The place where you can actually like send me a message and I'll get back to you is on Instagram. That is where I live and breathe. Like I have tried the TikTok thing, I have tried the YouTubes, I've tried all the other things, you guys, but you can consistently find me, and that's where I think, like, if you really want to work with me, if you have a question, if you need support in some way, capacity, or form, it's Instagram, and that's at Bren J Life Coaching as well. And also check out Just Be, right, at justbe.nyc. That's a wellness company that I'm partnered up with Dramos with, and that we have social clubs and we do one-on-one, and right now, that's the only way that you can work with me one-on-one, actually, is through justbe.nyc. And you can hit me up on my own Instagram about it. But but that is like the space, that is the movement that we're creating, that is where we're being super intentional right now with the content that we're trying to put out for people, right? But yeah, that's where you can find me, and I look forward to helping anyone who's helping grow, because who wants to grow and thrive, because this journey is a long one. Things change, and we have growing pains, and nobody should have to go through those alone.
So thank you so much for your time. It's been a pleasure. Check her out. I will put her information on the website and share it around, and we'll share some tidbits of this awesome conversation. And yeah, Brenda, thank you so much. I appreciate your time.
You're welcome.
Thank you for joining us for the Multiracialverse Podcast. My name is Antonio Fernandez. You can find this podcast on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Huge shout out to my friend Johannes Skoda for mixing and creating the intro music, and DJ Kazam for the track.